What's up, slashes and slashettes? My name's Nightfall, and welcome to another installment of Anime's Index of Badassery, a series where we take a look at anime's most badass characters and show how they fit into one or more of the three pillars of badassery: intelligent, overpowered, and flexing. Today's edition is the tea-loving protagonist of Trapped in a Dating Sim, the world of Otome games, is tough for mobs, Leon Foe Bartfort. So first, let's do a quick exposition. The person who would become Leon was playing an Otome game for his sister, and after 100% completing it, he went outside and due to exhaustion, fell down a flight of stairs and died. He was reincarnated into the game he was playing as Leon Foe Bartfort. In this world, women hold all the power, which leads to Leon either getting into an arranged marriage or dying in war. So he opted for option C, hopped in a ship, and using his knowledge of the game, clears the dungeon and gets powerful equipment. Luxion, who is my favorite character, I mean, look at this little sassy cutie, I want a plushie of him so bad. And he also gets a whole lot of money, which he uses to go to the academy, which is where the game actually takes place, and is where men go to find wives. While at the academy, he befriends Olivia, who is the protagonist of the game, but he quickly finds out that spot seems to have been taken from her by a girl named Marie. So the entire plot is him trying to figure out why she isn't the protagonist, fix it, and remain as a background mob character. Obviously, though, that doesn't go as planned. So now to get into what pillar of badassery he falls under, and that is without a doubt, flexing. The reason I chose this one and not the others is because his intelligence is mainly only due to him remembering what all happened in the game and using that knowledge, but he doesn't really have any crazy feats at the moment to justify him being intelligently badass. As for him not being an overpowered one, the main reason for that is because he doesn't really have a lot of badass moments due to his power to justify him being in that pillar. Obviously, there are some scenes, but they'll also be covered in the next segment, which is how he is a flexing badass. To begin with, throughout the entire season, he doesn't care at all about how he talks to people, using crude language around not only girls, but also nobility as a whole. But the flexing really doesn't start until Angelica challenges Marie to a duel. Of course, Prince Julius and his friends become Marie's champions and start to get really cocky. That's when Leon becomes Angelica's champion and proceeds to continuously interrupt and mock them, saying that they should be more scared and it's naive to assume he'd lose. Keep in mind, he just agreed to fight all 5 of them in 5 1v1s. When the duels start, he fights using an outdated mech called Arrogance, which everyone in the arena laughs at, and Brad starts bragging about his superior armor, to which Leon tells him to shut up and start fighting. So they do. And Leon knocks him out with a single hit using a shovel. Dude didn't, or should I say doesn't, bother switching to an actual weapon for any of the duels. After one-shotting Brad, it's Greg's turn to fight, and he starts off with trash talk, calling Leon weak and saying he's only strong because of his armor. So Leon mocks Greg, there's a bit of a theme going on, wins the fight, and proceeds to tear his armor apart, saying he should shed his pride and use the excuse that he only lost because his armor was weaker. Greg then tries to fight Leon without armor, so Leon calls him weak and a nobody and says unlike the prince and other pampered nobles, he doesn't like bullying the weak. The next fight is with Chris, who talks a big game, and when Leon uses drones, he criticizes him for not being chivalrous. So Leon lets him get in close, only to snap his sword and call him weak. When Chris says he worked harder than anyone and couldn't understand why he lost, Leon bent down and told him to brag to Marie because she might take pity on him. In between duels, as Leon was taking a break, Jilk rigged Arrogance with explosives before their match. Luxian tells Leon and also lets him know that they'll have no real effect, so during the fight, after Leon tanks an armor-piercing bomb, Jilk uses the preset bombs, which are a heavy blow, but doesn't really do much else. After threatening Leon, Jilk calls him a coward for recording the threat and using it as leverage, to which Leon calls Jilk a coward for threatening him in the first place and rigging his armor. Next up is the prince himself, and Leon mocks Julius during their battle, telling him that he's really just being tricked by a girl who was born out of nobility. When Julius calls him arrogant, he makes the mistake of asking Leon if he enjoys being able to look down and lecture others, to which Leon answers, "It's awesome. I feel absolutely amazing. It's true that I'm arrogant, but you guys still can't beat me. How does it feel to lose to someone you saw as beneath you? He then proceeds to ask Julius if he's been through all the things Leon had to go through with Zola and the tea parties and how he's been abused by females simply for talking to them. He then says to use his status as prince to order him to lose. Julius refuses, to which Leon basically says that the only way for the prince to win otherwise would be if Leon pretended to lose. Then after having a conversation, Leon decides to show off how fast he could have ended every fight by lifting his hand and using impact, completely obliterating Julius's armor with one move. He didn't just win the fights, he gave them a dose of reality as well, not only breaking their armor, but all of their spirits, just because he wanted to. Dude is a menace. This next thing isn't a flex, but he tells Angelica the best way to get revenge on someone is to become happy yourself. I just wanted to mention that in this segment because I found it absolutely hilarious that he's handing out sound life advice as if he didn't just recently demoralize and humiliate the entire royal family simply because he hated them. After hearing about the princes having to make their own living now, and Marie being miserable because of it, Leon is ecstatic, saying it's great news and that he can finally sleep soundly. Then at the school festival, due to not wanting to get his family in danger, he took abuse from a count's daughter and her servants. However, she ended up insulting the queen, who was visiting Leon, which gave him the excuse of defending her honor, so to speak, which let him attack without getting too harsh of a punishment. And boy, did he let them know by wrecking every single one of them. Then afterwards, he himself proceeded to mock the queen, and then asks for her hand in marriage. He not only humiliated the prince, but also rizzed up his mom. This man is fucking insane. And that is everything for the first half of the season, so let's move on to the second half. This half starts off with a race, and Jilk is injured by his ex-fiancée Clarice's followers. Leon, of course, makes fun of Clarice the first time he meets her, and eventually substitutes in for Jilk due to the backlash Angelica would receive if he didn't. After being told how Jilk was even more of a douchebag for ending his and Clarice's engagement through a letter without even meeting her, Luxian asks Leon if he'd still race, to which Leon says of course he would. He not only bet a lot of money on himself, again, but he'll also get to see the disappointed looks of everyone who wants him to lose. When everyone boos him during the race, he says that since they want him to lose so badly, he has to win. And he does. After winning the race, he immediately goes back to Jilk, who is still recovering from his injuries, and is like, remember how you said you'd do whatever I said? Well, guess what? Time to repay me, home slice. He makes him go and apologize to Clarice, which, come on, that's gotta be humiliating, especially after she slapped him and told her servant not to punch him because he's not worth it. And the reason Leon did that, well, yes, it was mainly because he's just a decent fucking person, was because he also hated Jill. Everything this man does has some level of spite for the prince, his friends, and just nobility in general attached to it. Afterwards, he needs to help a girl named Carla with a manufactured sky pirate crisis, and when he finds out he is working with Greg and Brad, he is absolutely disgusted. And when asking about Julius, Jilk, and Chris, he simply calls them by the colors of their hair and mechs instead of their actual names. After making short work of the Sky Pirates, they arrive at Carla's home, where she tries to blame the whole thing on Olivia, to which Leon is like, oh no, it was you and just you. And on top of that, we were promised payment, so pay up. Later on, when Brad is practicing swordsmanship, Leon asks why he's doing it, and when Brad tells him how all of them have been working hard to beat him, Leon says he's never fighting them again, so they'll remain losers for life. And as Brad talks about wanting to be praised by Marie, Leon proceeds to mock her and say she's not good looking on the outside or the inside. After fighting another wave of sky pirates, he destroys their leader's armor and harasses him after he said he'd surrender. Later they go on a school trip and Chris talks to Leon about his fight with Brad and eventually how he never thought of himself as a good swordsman and that his dad said he had no talent. To which Leon tells him, go let Marie comfort you. The Principality of Phanos, not to be confused with Vanos, Then starts a war with the kingdom, and Angelica is taken hostage. Leon and Olivia are then imprisoned for resisting, and Chris comes to talk to Leon, telling him when the principality will attack. Leon says all the nobles can die, and when Chris asks him to save them, he says no. He won't help useless people, and only agrees if they all participate. Which leads Chris to trying to get the nobles to cooperate, which of course, they're all arrogant, so they don't. So Leon shoots a shotgun and says that dying in battle is better than just being killed, and when told that he can go fight, he proceeds to say of course he'll fight, because he's a real noble. Unlike them, who are all wannabe nobles. When an earl's daughter named Dia something Roseblade gets mouthy and tells him to take it back, Leon first asks, "Who are you?" and then calls her a phony. He then proceeds to call them all cowards living off the achievements of their ancestors. Achievements that will be overwritten by their patheticness. After fighting through hordes of monsters, and quite literally through a monster, he takes out all of the princess's guards and takes her hostage. On the way back to the ship, her knights try to attack, but Leon proceeds to use her life as leverage and tells them to move or else. After the fighting picks back up, the partner, his ship he used when fighting the Sky Pirates, finally arrives, and Leon makes short work of the remaining soldiers, leaving only the Black Knight and the main aircraft. Leon begins fighting the Black Knight, and to be honest, Leon is getting his ass beat. His armor is getting damaged, he can barely land any hits, it's not going well. So Leon lets Arrogance get stabbed as Luxian takes control and grabs a hold of the Black Knight, keeping him in place. Leon then exits his armor in the middle of the battle and in the air, walks up, opens the Black Knight's cockpit, and points a shotgun at his face, declaring, "I win." I I don't even know what to say about that. I was shook when I saw that. Then Jalak calls a massive swarm of monsters, and both him and the Black Knight say how they'll destroy everything. Meanwhile, Leon is casually standing, still in the air by the way, casually standing and just says, "Luxian, you got this." To which Luxian activates a huge ship and bombards the swarm, killing all of them. He then proceeds to mock the Black Knight and take his sword, saying that he should retire and live in shame because he couldn't even beat a civilian ship carrying children. When he's done fending off the war, back at school, him, Angelica, and Olivia are having tea and cookies, and when a sweet shop is brought up, he says he'd buy the entire stock and eat them in front of all the girls, while also handing them out to any girl who was on a diet. The man is an absolute menace. He not only wins the fight, but will absolutely shatter the spirit of his opponent, often out of pure spite, simply because he wanted to. And that's why he is being added to the index as a flexing badass. Obviously, there was character development and relationship stuff I didn't get into, as this isn't that type of character analysis, but I highly recommend you guys go and watch this anime because it and the characters are really good. It really makes me hope that someday Yomu Mishima's other story, I'm the Evil Lord of an Intergalactic Empire, will get an anime adaptation as well. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If it's your birthday, happy birthday, and I will hopefully see you all soon. Goodbye.